Obviously, as I said Sunday, for those of you that were up in Minneapolis, I'm excited for these guys because they've earned their chance to keep playing, and they're playing really well right now. So you get to this point in time, you know that anybody left is a really good team, and we obviously have learned that over the last 48 hours with James Madison. They caught everybody's attention day one of the season with winning at Michigan State, which was well-deserved. They were really good in that game. And they've had a phenomenal year to go 31-3 and really old. A lot of transfers and are obviously playing really well right now. So we'll take off tomorrow afternoon, it looks like, for New York and practice out there Thursday. All that stuff that comes with the opportunity, and get ready for Friday night. So, like I said, we're continuing we started with a little bit of intro yesterday, did more today. We'll ramp that up as we go through the next 2 days, but we'll have to continue to play well. I think that's the main thing is where we're at right now, and how we've been playing the last 6 games. We got to keep our foot on the gas in that regard, and see how far we can roll this down the road.
Hey, Greg, one of those players that has been in the program for a few years, Terrence Edwards Jr., good size. What kind of stood out with his guard play in your preparation? Not just scoring, but I believe he's a leading assist man too.
Yeah, he obviously ball gets in his hands a lot. They share it really well. The 2-point guards, they play them some together. And then they play him individually as well. But with Edwards, he's like some of the guys we've seen in our league, whether it be, maybe not quite like Terrence Shannon, but, athletically, but that type of ball is going to be his hands quite a bit. He's going to be making plays for others. He can score. He just knows how to find the bottom of the basket. A little bit of Jameer Youngish. There's, he'll handle the balls at times in transition. He'll play out top with it, but they spread the floor pretty well. I would say, schematically a little similar to Nebraska, minus the bigs don't shoot threes. Bickerstaff doesn't shoot threes to about 15 feet, and Carey has shot a few, but this. It's what everybody's doing. We're doing the same thing, too, with the 5 wide, utilizing the spacing on the floor and coverage and trying to create gaps and driving lines and those things. So, but Edwards is a good player. He's the MVP of that league for a reason.
Jeff?
Greg, you've talked a lot about wanting to see Steven be more aggressive, more selfish.
Mm-hmm.
I know he got the technical against Edey the other day. I don't know if that bothered you, but the fact that he kind of stood up against the guy and he wasn't backing down that early in the game, was that a good sign for you, the way he was approaching that?
Yeah, I think, you want guys to, they have to play within the flow of the game. That wasn't intentional, for him to get into a little jawing match with Edey, but it's good to see him, kind of stand his ground and the same thing with Max. Max kind of inserted himself in there too a little bit. Shocker to no one. But the fact that he's aggressive, I think that's the mindset he's in, and he's playing pretty well right now. So we need to continue to, capitalize on his aggressiveness and keep him in that mode.
Greg, you talked about Chucky's leadership the other day, but he was noticeably more assertive, hunting his shot. Was anything to that, or is that just a matter of taking what's in front of him?
I think it's both. I think there's, with assertiveness with your voice can come assertiveness with your play. But I also think, he's getting better as a player. The jumps he's made even this year, that how good he is in ball screens right now, with pinching guys off, specifically in drop coverages, so, and we've obviously done more ball screens this year than maybe the last 20-some years combined, just because of how we've shifted things offensively. But he's gotten really good at it. He's, you don't see him taking those those hoist shots at the end of the shot clocks anymore. He's inside the paint. He's in there. He's got a mid-range game. He's got little floaters he's working on. And he's more assertive, and I've noticed that even when we were stumbling in February, that his voice was starting to come, and he was starting to really take charge of things. And sometimes you got to be in some adverse situations to really force that to come out. And he's done a great job of that, and his play has backed it up. So now I think he's playing at a really high level.
Greg, when you first got into the JMU film, what really jumps off the page for you about them, and what matchups or lack of matchups will work for you guys, do you think?
Well, I think you just look at their numbers, and obviously, and then you watch them play, and we knew they were, they had been on a long winning streak. I didn't realize they did not win the regular season, that Appalachian State had won it, and then obviously JMU won the tournament. But just I think the diversity and the depth that they play with, about 9 guys they'll go with. They move the ball. As I mentioned in the outset, they're old, and you can tell. They've got, Friedel has been around the game for a while. Bickerstaff's been around the game. Edwards, they're all older guys. So there's a lot of experience there, and I think they've kind of pointed towards this year as being their year to make this type of run. But they share it really well. Like I said, the spacing on the floor is evident. Friedel, we've known him, and he was at South Dakota State. He's from South Dakota, so Joe knew his background and everything. So there's a lot of familiarity there. Bickerstaff was at BC, Boston College, before he transferred to JMU, and so there's a lot of. It's such a small degree of separation in our profession. Like, you talk to a couple people, and there's you have dots connected pretty tightly, just of how they play and what they're like. And but the matchups will be. I think we match up fine. I think we've got a versatile enough lineup that we can match up with about anybody because we can positionally shift people around as we've done through the year. So it'll be, and we'll have to be really good. They're obviously very confident. They're playing really well, as you would expect. This time of year, that there's not a lot of bad teams left.
Greg, when you go through a stretch like you and your team went through in February, playing some games well but not getting the result with the final score, how does the messaging change as a coach who's been around and seen a lot more things than your players have? What's the messaging to them to make them believe that they could make the run that they made in Minneapolis and then on into the tournament?
You give them some examples of the past. All 3 of the staff members have been on teams that have had stumbling blocks at points and times. Even Kirk's position, he talked about our first year here. I think he was a junior, I believe. When we started out, what did we start out? 1-5, one bad. Yeah. They were ready to ship Bo back to Milwaukee. But we got things, it was a belief in it and a confidence in it. And you keep pushing forward. That you're going to get through this, and you show them the good things. Like I said, when we played at Purdue, I left there really encouraged, even though we had lost the game, that we had played really well. And there was other spots where we had played well, maybe not well enough to finish out a game, but you just stay positive with it, and you keep teaching and keep coaching, and keep reminding them they're not the first team to go through it, and they won't be the last. And that's just our own history of various teams through the last 20-plus years that have you're most likely – there's only really 3 teams maybe in the country this year that haven't gone through a little extended skid. Probably Houston, UConn, and Purdue might be the only 3. So you're going to have some bumps along the way. You try not to make them last 3 weeks, but you're going to have some, and then how do you respond to it? And this group has responded to it exceptionally well.
Tried different things with those 4 minutes behind Tyler. Has Carter earned some extra consideration with the play that he's had over the last couple of
Really
games?
depends on matchups. Sunday I went with Carter because I felt we needed more physicality on the glass, and offense wasn't a problem. It was the defense, and Carter's probably a little more adept to help us in that regard. And I thought he did some good things, but defensively and the physicality of the rebounding, it came down to really, as I evaluated the game, transition defense and defensive rebounding, that we had a couple loose balls that we didn't get to, or a couple blockouts we missed that ended up extra possessions. So that's just the flow of the game and what the game was like. I felt we needed more physicality at that position when Tyler got himself in foul trouble. So it'll vary. It's a little different with with James Madison. They can play with 4 guards or a more of a stretch 4. So different than maybe not the size and the physicality that we've seen. There's no Zach Edey there, but so it game by game really is what I'm getting to, Mike, is what I decide on whether it's Marcus or Carter.
To follow up on that, I guess when he's out in that role, is it important for him to be able to just provide something offensively like he's done over the last couple of games?
Yeah, if he can. I think he understands his lane, and he's done a good job of staying in and understanding what he's good at. And I think that's evolved through the year. I think he's gotten better at understanding punch drive opportunities and offensive rebounding and those things. So, both those guys have really high basketball IQs. They understand things, really well. They're the 2 guys today that ask the most questions on the floor. You can just tell their wheels are spinning in terms of what they're thinking about and what they're seeing. It's the more he can provide, the better. But obviously, we've got other guys that have filled that scoring role.
Greg, when you're evaluating James Madison, how much do you factor in their relatively weaker strength of schedule?
I really don't factor that in because I know they played, they caught the attention right out of the gate back in November when they won at Michigan State. I watched that game yesterday. And they played Akron, who I'm really familiar with John Gross there. And then through their league, we played Arkansas State, at the start of the year, which is who they beat to win their conference tournament. So, and then you look through the other, Appalachian State is typically really good in that league. So I watch more of the style of play and that than, necessarily who they're playing against, because you're not going to find, for the most part, like comparisons, so to speak. Other than Michigan State would be the only one that maybe size-wise matches up. But, they played really well at Michigan State and were really scrappy, really hungry. I watched some of that game live back in November, not knowing that we'd be at this day, but they earned that win. That wasn't a fluke.
Going back to Chucky, just what is it about his game that enables him to kind of succeed when the lights are the brightest, like what we saw last week? And I'm also just wondering if you could sense just how much he's kind of savoring this opportunity after the way his NCAA run ended a couple of years ago. Yeah,
I think, he's put a lot of time in. He's worked at it. He's really changed his body, over the last 18 months to 2 years. He's put time in. I think that's the biggest thing. And when you put time in, you have the confidence to go perform. And he obviously is, he won here as a freshman, a Big Ten championship. He hits the game-winning shot. So he's never been afraid of the moment. Even back in high school, he won state championships. So, but it's the work that he puts in, I think, is the biggest thing that gives him the confidence. You don't just go do it when the lights go on. You put hours and hours and hours in, and he's one that continues to do that. He puts in a lot of shots after practice, watching film a lot. He's studying guys who he's going to guard. So, I know he's after, he rolled that ankle pretty good against Iowa State. He's excited to get back and be in this position.
Jeff?
Greg, you've talked about wanting AJ to attack, especially on 2 feet. I know he likes to settle for jumpers sometimes, but how do you think he did in the Big Ten tournament in terms of getting to the rim as much as you would like?
He got there. He got there. I'd still like some better finishing, and, that's, he has a unique talent that he does some things you can't teach. So we've talked about that, and he understands. I think I've watched him get better through games. Not work the first 2 or 3 times, and then by the 4th time he's going in playing off 2 feet, and he knows it. But I think also, like I've talked about before, there's a line there that you got to let him roll, a little bit, and you provide some guidance. and I've tried not to be. There's been times when I've really gotten after him, and he knows. I think that's the thing that's what I like about him so much is that he's a little salty when I pull him out, but when the dust settles, he understands, and he's like, yeah, I know, and I think it appears he's extremely appreciative for the growth he's had this year, and because we've coached him pretty hard, and he's been very receptive to it, and I think he's gotten. I've said all along he might be our most improved player from when we started back in October. But we need him to attack, and Terrence Shannon doesn't, every move he makes, and like that's just how the game is now, too. That the charges aren't being called, so how are you going to counter offensively? You got to go attack and get better. And Chucky's done more of that too. I thought maybe he could have had a call or two down the stretch Sunday, but that's where the game is going. They less charges, more blocks, more free throws, more points. So you got to adapt a little bit and play to that when you can.
Don't need to remind you that you guys haven't been to the second weekend of the tournament in 7 years.
Yeah, you don't remind me.
All right, I just did. Sorry. I know this week your head's elsewhere, but have you spent much time thinking about that or evaluating why?
No.
As you've pretty consistently said that this tournament's just kind of a matchup based and
it is
somewhat
it's
of a
hard.
crapshoot.
It's hard to you look at all the quote unquote upsets that are going to happen and have happened. I mean, there's so much parity, and I keep using that word, and you guys are probably tired of printing it or writing it. But it's gotten more and more that way, and you're going to see more of that with the portal. I mean, there's going to be more shifting of rosters, and the James Madison of 7 years ago is look at all the guys that have transferred in there, and it just flips rosters overnight. So, yeah, I mean, you always wanted the goal is here to go win 6 games. That's the goal. Is this group good enough to do it? If we play really well, this is in today's game. You got to score. If you look at the top teams, in fact, I've done the study, so I can even give you the information. Patrick, what did we go back 5 years ago when we did the offense-defense flip? So we went back in Ken Palm 5 years and ranked the top 10 defensive teams. They were all in the NCAA tournament. We ranked the top 10 defensive teams this year. 4 of the 10 are not in it, right? Is that what it was? And you flip it and do offense. All the top offensive teams in the country are all high seeds. You got to score. The game has changed. I mean, so hence you've seen us change. You've seen some other programs in our league change. Maybe their identity or, you had 4 teams average 80 points or more. We averaged the most we've averaged in 30 years here because the game is changing. You have to transcend to do that. And most likely, there's some outliers like a Houston that really locks you down. Iowa State does some of that. But if you look across college basketball, UConn, Alabama, Illinois, Purdue, teams are scoring. Not that defense isn't important and isn't, but the rules have all shifted to favor offense and penalize defense. They want more fouls, more free throws, more points. Everything about it has all the rule changes in the last. And we will look back. Every rule change, there's been an uptick in scoring, and they've all been made to push scoring up. So you have to stay ahead of the curve. And thankfully, we've made shifts fast within the last 2 years, and we got to continue to make more because that's where the game is.
Obviously, you're coming off a game Sunday. By the time you play on Friday, it'll be 11 days since James Madison played in their championship. Is there anything to that?
No. I'm sure if I was in that position, so I'm sure, is it Mark Byington, right? It's Mark, right? You would set up little intentional game days in between to keep your rhythm. Maybe every 3 days. I'm sure they took a few days after the conference tournament championship, but you would set up, take a day or two off, and then practice and have a game type practice where you'd had scoreboard running and compete. So when we've had longer stretches, we've always done that, and that's, I think, some of the conference tournaments that have the earlier championship game, you have to keep a rhythm. You just don't shut it down for 2 weeks and then jump and get ready. You keep some type of fire burning and have a really intense day. Ours will ramp up tomorrow a little bit. Yesterday was just a little video, and today was a little bit on the floor. Tomorrow will be a heavier, more intense day to be firing more for Friday night. So,
Zach, on your right.
I know Friday's the most important day, but the portal opened yesterday. How are you managing that, along with obviously what's happening and what's most important this Friday?
Yeah, I mean, we're managing it. You have to do both. You have to. I mean, as much as you have to focus on preparing and winning on Friday. So yeah, we're monitoring the portal. My phone buzzes. So we have a staff text thread that goes that every time somebody of importance, I guess, or of the noteworthy, not every portal entry ever would be I don't know how many have happened today, but there was almost 500 yesterday. So yeah, you stay on top of it, and we're in contact with people because you have to be, because the landscape has changed. I mean, that's where we are, and you have to stay ahead of it, regardless of what your needs are, or will be, or could be, or because it's an ever-changing world.
Have you talked to your own guys as well?
No, I haven't. Just because we're playing, I have not. I've left that alone, and I think I'll address that after. Hopefully, that's weeks down the road. If any of them would come to me, I would talk to them about it. But their focus needs to be on the task at hand right now, where most of our focus needs to be, specifically mine. And I got 1 or 2 assistants kind of keeping an eye on it and in touch with people. But we need to focus on what we're doing right now. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
You obviously have a pretty late tip on Friday night. How do you and your staff get your guys prepared for that?
Well, we've had late tips through the year. We played late East Coast games. I think Penn State was a later game. We've done other ones. So you just track we'll practice mid-afternoon tomorrow or early tomorrow, and then out there Thursday will be, I think we have the last open practice of the day. And then we'll go from there to a practice. So you're not going to simulate it exactly, because I don't want us practicing at 9:40 at night, but you'll structure that day. So let them sleep. We'll let them sleep a little later on Thursday, and obviously let them sleep a little later on Friday, and just structure your meal accordingly. But they'll be up bouncing around anyway. I mean, they're going to watch 3 days of games before it's our game day, between the play-in games that start tonight. So these guys would be ready to play, whether it was maybe not 6 a.m., but I don't know how many of them are early risers, but we'll adjust. And it's nothing different than how we played through all the year with the different TV times.
Craig, back to the portal for a second. If you had your druthers, if you had it your way, would coaches like to see the opening of the portal window pushed back so it's not during the NCAA tournament? Yeah,
I mean, we dealt with this last year too. As we're running through the NIT, we've got kids on visits, and we're playing yet. So yes, I think ideally you'd like to have it, after the Final Four when everybody's done, because it is a disadvantage if you're still playing, because your focus should be on your team that you currently have. But I know with the window, they went from 60 to 45 day window, right? And they were talking about a 30. Felt 30 was too short. And every school's different in terms of admissions too. If it gets too late, then you may run up against admission deadlines, and those vary from school to school. So, yeah, I think there's nothing. We're still trying to figure out this thing nationally. I think we're still trying to get our arms around what's best. Is more better? Is less better? I think we're still adjusting right now.
To be a little more vocal and how you try to help this team through.
just tired of losing. We went through that same stretch last year, and I didn't want the same thing to happen again. So I knew a leader needed to step up, and I knew that had to be me coming from the point guard. So I know a lot of guys look to me to say something, and it's time to start stepping up.
For AJ, you come in, coming in from last year, the team that came in. Was this kind of what you expected when you came to Wisconsin? You guys being able to be a 5 seed, you guys being able to compete at the highest level like you guys did this year?
I obviously knew we were a talented team. We had a great run at the beginning of the season. I think we won like 9 straight, so I knew that we was going to be in the tournament.
Chucky, you were in attack mode, especially the last 2 games up in Minneapolis. What all goes into that kind of your role as a distributor at times? You also, I'm sure, want to create your own offense. What's the mindset like?
Thirsty for blood. That's all I got to say. Thirsty for blood.
Can you elaborate on that?
Killing instinct. Everybody getting it.
AJ, to kind of follow up on that, do you remember what you were doing last year at this time? Because your season at St. John's was over. You hadn't declared about the portal yet, I don't think. So can you kind of take us back and what you were doing from the end of that season before you entered the portal and what that was like not being able to play in any tournament?
Watching other teams get selected and just was in the gym shooting.
Steve, similar to what Chucky was asked, I guess, what do you feel like you found in these last 4 games of the tournament with your own game?
I think just changing my mindset to being more aggressive because I think we're better when I'm aggressive, and these guys tell me that, and the coaches tell me that, and so just changing my mindset to look for mine a little bit more.
Stephen, to follow up on that a little bit, does that include chirping at a certain center from Purdue and getting a technical?
Yeah, I'll chirp at anyone. I don't really care who it is. So yeah, just I don't know, just being a little more active out there and a little more aggressive.
To follow up on that, I don't know, what was your head coach's thought about you getting a technical? I'm sure he wasn't happy about that, but did he like the fact that looked like you were sending Edie a message like, hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here all day if you want to come at me.
I don't think he minded at all. I don't think anyone on the staff or any of my teammates minded, and it was kind of a 2-for-1 for me a little bit. I got 1 foul, he got 2, so it kind of worked out a little bit.
Chucky, I don't need to remind you how the last NCAA tournament ended for you specifically. Can you talk about how hard that was first, and does that provide a little bit of extra motivation going to this one?
Yeah, that was definitely hard. Going out like that, not being able to fight out there with my brothers, definitely tough. But more experience. I'm just trying to take it one game at a time, prepare my body for this tournament this week, and we hope to make a long run in this tournament. So, we got to do whatever we got to do to get our bodies right, our mental right, and, just go out there and compete one game at a time.
Chucky, looking ahead to James Madison, their leading scorer, he's a bit of a bigger guard, 6'6". You guys just played, a bigger guard in Terrence Shannon. What are you guys looking to do, when you guys face a guy like that, and how are you guys maybe defensively looking to combat him?
Keep him from scoring. Simple as that. It's a very simple game, just try to eliminate the best players, and, we're definitely going to try to take him out. He's a really good player. He's the best player in the league in the conference for a reason. So, a lot of our eyes are going to be shifted on him, but they also got other players on the team as well that are really good. The point guard, they got a couple of players off the bench as well that's really good. So, we just got to keep everybody contained. That's going to be a big key for us.
AJ, I know the other day Sunday you were talking about how defensively you've committed more and feel like you've grown on the defensive end. What's gone into that? What's the conversation been like with the coaching staff and your teammates about, being more dedicated on the defensive end, or how have you grown in that aspect?
I'm just really trying to, be a two-way player, more of a better two-way player. Just being because I know I can score on whoever's guarding me, but just locking down them when they're on the offensive side too.
Chucky, from the day you got her, you've talked about the fact that you love to set other people up, defend, and facilitate. But you've been more assertive offensively. Is it a difficult transition if they say, Chucky, we need more scoring today, or if you sense in the game that you need to be more assertive offensively, or is it easy for you to flip that switch?
You know, it was hard during the season to kind of find out what my role was. But as the season went on, you know, I kind of just got the feel for the game. And once you get that feel for the game, you kind of just flip that switch really easily. And you know, that's what I was able to do over the weekend. And, you know, I found a lot of confidence in myself doing that. So, you know, it gives me a lot of confidence going into March Madness.
To the back. Chucky, I don't know if anybody asked you this Sunday, but, you know, when Selection Sunday is going on, everybody's around you on their phones and applauding and stuff, and you look pretty angry, obviously, after the loss. I mean, what was going through your mind there, and you know, how do you move forward for that? And like you said, stay hungry for blood.
Yeah, you know, my mindset is we got to take it one game at a time. You know, we've been here before. And, you know, we lost the second round, and I don't want to just go make March Madness. I want to make a deep run in this tournament. So, you know, I'm just trying to lock in, you know, make sure my teammates are locked in, and I really want to make a deep run in this tournament.
Michael? Chucky, you obviously missed the game Friday. How much of this week is just, at the early part of the week, just trying to get better, healthy, like with the whole team?
Yeah, it's a huge part of the week, you know, just trying to get our body right physically, but also, like, being able to get extra reps up because, you know, that's going to be huge. You know, shots count in March, and if you can't knock down shots, you're going to have a quick exit in March. So,
Stephen, looking at the matchup, there's a bit of a size advantage where you're going to be the tallest player on the court. When you kind of see that, does that kind of tell you might need to be a little more aggressive on offense or aggressive on both sides of the ball in that case?
I don't really think so. I think it's just whoever we play, I got to be more aggressive. It doesn't really matter on the matchup, whether it's Zach Edey or a smaller guy on me. Just trying to be aggressive in all facets of the game, no matter who's on me.
Stephen, when you talk about last week and, you know, being more successful on the offensive side, I mean, has part of that been finding more confidence and you know, once you get on a run of being able to score, how much does that roll into the next game with just being more confident?
I think for any player, after you see a couple buckets drop or a couple threes or free throws drop, you get a little bit more confident. They started falling for you, and I think it just all goes back to my mindset, like I was telling him, and I have great teammates who set me up and find me in open spots.